Hello, I'm Carl, and this is Pro Cycles Tech Talk. For those of you who don't know, once a month we're going to cover features, technical information to help you make your dual sport ride a little bit nicer, get some adjustments, make some upgrades on your bike, and make your daily ride as well as your weekend trips a lot happier. Today, we want to talk about float bowl height, how to set your floats. You know, things like that. People wonder, why do I need to do this? What happens if it doesn't? Some of the causes of having float bowls incorrectly set, and sometimes that happens when we install jet kits, is the float bowls may get bumped or out of adjustment. But what some of the symptoms would be is if you're coming up to a stop, you're on city streets, you come up to a street light and you grab a lot of front brake, the bike dives forward, all the inertia of the moves the fuel to the front of the carburetor, the bike stalls. It stalls out. Hey, my bike's stalling every time I come up to a stop, and then you got to get it restarted. Or if you had the floats set where they're too low and it floods out, we're going to have overflow problems. You're always going to, riding along at idle, you see this dripping coming out of the overflow tubes. So we're going to talk about how to adjust your floats and get them to the right height per your factory specifications. Want to get you going in the right direction for this. So we've got two carburetors to look at today. I've got a standard, one of the BST 40 carbs. This came off of a KLR 650. That's going to be the same kind of setup, the same configuration that would be on a DR 650. A couple little details changed just to make it fit better on a DR versus a KLR, but the same concept, the same kind of function on that. The other carburetor we're going to take a look at is one of the big Mikuni TM40 flat slide pumper carbs. Going to take a look at that and see how that gets the float bowls adjusted. Very similar process for adjusting on both of them. It's just a little bit of internal pieces may look different. So we're going to show you both examples so nothing seems too scary when you go to do it. So we got our two carburetors here, and we're going to first take a look at a TM40 carburetor, one that has the accelerator pump, the flat slide. Of course, with your proper JIS screwdriver, we're going to take the float screws out of the float bowl, take it out, and we're going to see where the floats, you can see where they move up and down a little bit. And the overflow, TM40s have a brass pipe on the inside that when the fuel gets up to that level, that's your overflow. It's going to come out your overflow tube, and that's going to be your indication that we're flooding inside the motor. That saves it from flooding down the throat and into the motor of the carb. So we're going to take a look at the floats here. They're attached. And on the inside there, probably tough to see, we've got the little fill valve that as the floats will fill up, it shuts off the fill valve. So our way to adjust this, or way to take a look at our setting, is when you have your floats and you start to tilt the carburetor upright, the floats will slowly, there they go, they will shut, but not press shut. They're just going to go to where everything is engaged, and the distance from the base of the carburetor body to the top of the floats there, that's your setting. Normally, most carbs like 17 millimeters, so we're going to take our micrometers right here, and we're going to get them turned on, and we're going to have it set in millimeters. So we kind of take a quick look, and again, we want to set to where that is just starting to set, but we haven't compressed it down. It's just making the contact, and we want to measure to see how much distance we have, and we kind of take a quick little peek there on the base to that, and there it is. And we're right at 17 millimeters. So that's going to be the winner there. And that's how you would adjust it. Now, if they were off, and we'll show you on this carburetor, if your floats were off, you got to remove the floats and the little valve down there. And we'll just kind of tap that little pin out that holds the floats in place. We'll kind of get it started there. We'll take it out with a proper tool, and the floats come out. Right there is the float valve, or the needle valve, that goes inside the needle valve base, and that's what shuts off the fuel flow. As you see that popped out, there's a little tiny tang there, and the adjustment would be, as we would take a screwdriver, and we're either going to pry it up or we're going to press it back down to adjust it. And if you pry it up, that means the floats will be lower, so if your floats are too high, prying it up allows it to set lower. If they're too low, we want to pry it up, which allows it to set higher. So that would be our adjustment on that. And then as soon as you get it adjusted, you're going to take, and we're going to take our little needle valve, and we're going to put it back in, as I awkwardly try to do this, and then we're just going to set it back into place in the needle valve. And at that point, we'll put our float pin back in place. There it goes. So we get our float pin back in place. And then, like I said before, where they go up, and just as they were starting to contact without pressing down, That's where we would measure in, and that's where you're going to match up your factory recommended measurement. Like I said, the majority of them, everything we've seen on Kawasaki's, Suzuki's, a lot of Hondas, they're all going to want to be at 17 millimeters. But check your factory manual to make sure this is the right setting for your bike and your carburetor. Sometimes they may have a range of 17 to 19 millimeters. At that point, either one you could hit is going to be okay. But like I said, that's going to help prevent the stalling when you come up to a light. It's also going to prevent if the floats are set too high, and then it always allows the flooding, and you don't want the fuel to go down the inside. Now, sometimes you may see that, oh, I've got my float set, I did everything right as it should be, and it's still flooding out a little bit. And let's take a look at what we have here. Again, we'll take the pin out of the float, take the floats out. That needle valve seat has an O-ring around it, and sometimes that O-ring will deteriorate. So when you get everything right and it's set there and it still floods and you can't figure out why, it's the O-ring shot. It's time for a carburetor rebuild kit. At that point, this thing just kind of pops out, and you can pop it out, and then you get the new O-ring on it and put it in, and that's going to seal it, and that's going to prevent, even though the floats are set correct, that's going to prevent any kind of flooding or over flooding. You don't want that to happen when you park it in the garage over the weekend or something like that. All of a sudden there's gas everywhere. The airbox is filled up with gas. Time for the rebuild carb kit. So there you have it. We've got everything set for what you need to check the floats. Like I said, on TM40s, it's a real simple process. Like I said, once again, we'll kind of review it. We'll kind of take our pointer here and go inside where you can see the needle valve inside there. And just as it starts to contact, that's in there, just as it starts to contact, that's where we want to measure from the carb body base up to the floats. Like I said, the majority of them are 17 millimeters. Check with your factory specs. We don't measure them compressed. We just measure them to where it just made contact. Like I said, it's floating. It just made contact. That's our measurement. That's the magic number you're looking for, and we'll get it going for you. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel and newsletter, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, your adventure begins here.